guys, welcome back to my channel. I am not doing my normal intro because I feel like it's getting me demonetized. I mentioned it yesterday, but if you weren't here for yesterday's video, I don't know why, but when I don't do my intro, I don't get demonetized, so this is just a test. We're gonna see, because we have to live and die by YouTube's rules. Today we're going to be talking about something that's topical. I don't know if you guys remember, but around, I don't know, like August, September of last year, I kind of went into like a hole. And it took me a really long time to kind of pull my way out of it because a lot of it had to do with sort of living in my own limited paradigms that I'd created for myself. A lot of really kind of like self-inflicted challenges and obstacles that were in my brain, kind of based in defense mechanisms and insecurities and things like that. And so it inspired me to do my 12-part series last December, which was called 12 Days of Mindfulness. Not a lot of people were into it. That's totally fine. It honestly is helpful for me to go back and look at again because it helps me kind of mark that time in my life so that I can refer back to it. It's almost like a diary. So I did definitely experience that kind of lull and laziness as I got really, really busy throughout the holidays, and then coming out of it, I stopped really taking the time to invest in myself as much as I should have, and it resulted in me kind of spiraling again. Some things have just kind of like come up in my life recently. I have a very happy life. There's really nothing to necessarily be stressed out about, but I kind of was already really vulnerable to them, and I've had to sort of get back to center and be mindful and aware of the signs in my life that I'm drifting back down that really negative, low vibe path. So again, I will say the same thing that I have said in a lot of those videos if you've watched them in the past. If you are anti-spiritual journey, this is probably not the video for you. You're gonna be like, wow, this is really woo-woo, and what's your problem? So maybe just skip to the next one. But if you guys wanna hang, it's gonna be kind of a chatty video, so let's just go ahead and get started. So one of the big things for me has always been just kind of a self-care routine, and for me that's not necessarily like doing something as much as it is applying a certain feeling to the thing that I'm doing. So for example, if I go and take a really nice bath, if I'm just taking a really nice bath, I don't really feel good when I get out. Like nothing's really changed, do you know what I mean? But if I go and I say, this is going to be my self-care time, this is the time that I'm going to use by myself, because we don't always get a lot of time by ourselves, this is the time that I'm going to use by myself to think through and go toe-to-toe with a lot of the things that I feel like are kind of blocking my brain right now. Because the way that I like to feel and the way that I have felt in the past and I really have become more and more uncompromising on is this really beautiful sense of clarity and having an open heart and being pretty resilient to the challenges and unexpected things that happen in life, because so much of the time we end up constructing our worlds in a way that we kind of protect ourselves from getting hurt. And so when we do get hurt, or something kind of hits a nerve for us, we tend to react in this really retaliatory way instead of processing it in real time. Do not shame yourself for doing something like that, because that is the most human nature reaction to anything. We are all trying to survive on Earth, and we're all collecting stimuli from one another and trying to kind of like judge our own path based on the reactions that we get from the rest of the world. The problem is we often get caught up in our defense mechanisms and the ways that we have trained ourselves to kind of adjust to certain challenges from our past. And so those become what I call negative neural pathways, where you've just kind of like driven a way that you constantly handle this one type of thing. And so if all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So then what our responsibility is to make an effort to think outside of that, drive a new neural pathway. And a lot of times the way that I find is best to do that is to give myself the right amount of self-care and remind myself to love me. I really believe, and a lot of people think that this is really over the top, but I believe that we should all be romantically in love with ourselves. You can see that as vanity, you can see it as like ego or whatever. It's none of those things. It is a true and sincere love for yourself and waking up and looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, I'm so excited that I get to hang out with you all day because we are such best friends, because that's not a given. That's not a given that we're best friends with ourselves. And I want to feel excited to be me every day. And in order to do that, I can't look for that kind of fulfillment in someone else. Even though my fiance loves me unconditionally and I love him unconditionally, I don't look to him for that sense of fulfillment, that level of fulfillment, because he should be giving that to himself. You know what I mean? Everybody in the world has to be giving that kind of love to themselves, because no one else has room in their repertoire, in their time, in their energy to also be responsible for filling someone else all the way up to the top. So that is your responsibility, is to use that as your measuring stick. Like, don't be afraid to be romantically in love with yourself and wake up every day being excited to be yourself. And that is kind of what I had gotten away from, and so that's why I realized that like I was starting to spiral and that I needed to do a lot of self-care. So one of the biggest spring cleaning things for your self-care has to do with looking for the things that you need to throw out. Spring cleaning for your house is all about just getting rid of crap that's been sitting there for too long. You kind of gave yourself a reason. You're like, all right, I have a reason, finally going to notice all of these things. I'm finally going to be mindful of all of these things that are kind of cluttering, that I'm not really noticing because they've been sitting there for so long, and we're going to do something about it. Like, this is buckle down and do something about it right now. And so a lot of times we clean out our wardrobes, we clean out all the goo underneath our sinks, we just get the house cleaned, like things like that. So it's all kind of getting prepared to take on this new season of kind of renewal. So if you're looking at your life that way, you kind of have to start to take inventory of the things that are sort of bringing you down, the things that you haven't really taken the time to address. Sometimes that means people. Sometimes that means responsibilities. Sometimes that means your job. Sometimes that means things that you have created, things that are kind of in your mind, in the back of your head as kind of a challenge, or something that's stressing you out, but you kind of take a closer look at it finally, since it's been sitting in the corner of your brain, you finally give it the attention that it deserves and realize, this isn't actually that hard for me to work through, or even if it is, now's the time, and that it's really not helping me carrying this around all the time. And sometimes you're just not in the mindset to receive that, but I think that a lot of us going through February, because February friggin' sucks, in this hemisphere it sucks, it's a really good time for us to take inventory of what it is that's making us feel so icky, because February just makes you feel icky anyway. So it's like, oh, okay, so what's bubbling to the top right now? Like, what's making me feel so in a rut? And for me, it's actually like a good way to use that natural icky lull that happens this time of year. Another thing to really think about is the way we spend our time. So if you think about it, if you're awake, you're spending your time, right? Think about that for a second. Just let it sink in. So all the decisions you're making, whether you're going to work or whether you're using your free time to do something that you want to do, that's a decision that's making up your time spent, essentially. So for me, a really good way to start recentering myself is to use my free time, be that weekend time, morning time, lunch time at work, and reinvesting and concentrating on the things that center me to begin with. A lot of times that has to do with those books that I have talked about in the past. I will put a list below of the books that I love that kind of recenter me, but I really would love to hear if you guys have any books that kind of recenter you on a spiritual level and that make you kind of remind yourself how to get back in that place. But one of my favorite ones is called The Untethered Soul, and it sort of walks you through the way that you can kind of divorce your ego from your actual consciousness, and the way that a lot of what's happening to you is actually well within your control and something that you don't even have to try. There's a lot. It's a lot, and it's very cerebral, but it's really easy to read, and it's very important. And so when I am spending my free time reinvesting in those kinds of mindsets, what I'm doing is I'm taking the time in my day that I have free, and I am choosing to spend that on feeling that way. And so the more of my time I choose to spend feeling that way is time that I'm choosing not to spend kind of making negative things happen in my life or focusing on things that aren't healthy. And it builds on itself. Like, you don't realize, you're like, oh, okay, I'm just reading, but really what you were doing was you were investing in yourself. It's these tiny little micro decisions that make a huge difference in the long term. And I also have decided to start going back to therapy. Back in like November, I guess, I got stood up by my therapist. She kind of just misscheduled and missed one of my appointments at like 8 a.m. And it gave me so much anxiety because getting anywhere at 8 a.m., girl, that is like stressful for me. So it took me a while to kind of come back around to being like, you know what? I have to be a big girl, and sometimes these things happen, and I need my therapist. So I'm gonna start going back to therapy and hopefully just kind of like it's not so much that I'm like solving things in therapy as much as it is I'm taking an hour out of my week and devoting it to that part of my brain, because we always say that we're going to concentrate on that. We always say that we're going to give ourselves that time. Sometimes it means scheduling it. Sometimes it means taking yourself to a therapist and making sure that that hour is about talking about you, because it's not selfish, and even if it is selfish, you have to be greedy about your own self-love and your own mental health. And for me, that's what I'm doing when I'm going to therapy, or when I'm taking the time out of my day to read, or something like that. I just am taking that time and choosing to spend it on myself. And over time, in aggregate, that means a healthier brain for me. And then one final thing that I think is super important that is really hard to recognize in our own lives, but it's that when we have locked ourselves inside of a lot of kind of created stressors, what we tend to do is try and create distractions from that. And sometimes we don't realize we're doing it, especially like scrolling through social media. You're kind of looking for like a quick endorphin fix on your brain, or if you're not feeling that great, sometimes you'll go and you'll have like a night out with your friends or something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But recognize that those sort of bright moments in your life that you're creating, you can't fill your life with those and have it full to the brim with happiness. You have to kind of start at the core and find your own personal happiness there, or else you will end up where I ended up, 8 months ago, where I run out of things to distract myself with, and then reality is really unappealing and really depressing and really bleak. It's called radical acceptance of reality. That's what my therapist calls it. And it's when you look around yourself and you say, this isn't disappointing, this is just reality, this is what it is. And if I'm going to be a happy person, I have to be a happy person inside, resilient to whatever's happening out here. Like, I still have to love myself, and it doesn't come in the form of bright spots and distractions and social media and shiny things that you can use to distract yourself from the pain you might be feeling. The only way to do it is to come toe to toe with those things that are hurting you and work through them. And sometimes that means making hard decisions, but sometimes it means making a lot of really tiny positive decisions. So that choice is on all of us individually. I just wanted to share this with you guys because I do think that in a lot of ways, this is, again, a social media outlet. When you guys watch me, all you're seeing is, an hour out of my day or something like that. You could maybe, I don't know, but you could maybe perceive me as someone who has everything together and everything's perfect, and I just don't want to be that to you guys because that's not the case at all. I am working through things on a personal level all the time. I'm so much more than makeup and hair tips and favorites and things like that. I'm not just shopping and buying and reviewing all day. That's not my life. So I want to share with you guys kind of also my realities through time and the way that the seasons affect me and the way that we are all kind of growing. And I think that that's really valuable because I'm a real person at the end of the day. I have things that I want to share with you guys because you're my friends. And I hope that that's helpful for you guys. I don't claim to be any kind of guru. I don't claim to be any kind of guide, I think that we all have to kind of be our own spiritual guides and sort of listen to ourselves, but listening to yourself actually takes effort. It's not a matter of just going about your day and then, the signs come to you. You have to actively listen to them. And so I'm kind of getting back into a place where I'm starting to actively listen to that again, and I wanted to kind of share that with you guys because it's been a big part of my life lately. I know that making videos is what I really love. It makes me feel the most like myself, and I really, really enjoy it. So when I start to feel like I'm not looking forward to it, I know that that's not a referendum on making videos or that I need to change my career or something like that. It's a referendum on me and how I'm feeling on the inside. It means that I'm losing my enthusiasm for life and losing my enthusiasm for being curious. That's kind of my measuring stick right now. I have a long way to go on the whole spiritual journey thing, It's not all just, crystals and tarot. It's a lot of just hard thinking and meditating and just taking the time. It's a lot of thinking. It's very cerebral. But understanding what it feels like to be sort of drifting into a negative sort of low vibe place and then being able to pump the brakes on that before I hit rock bottom is a huge step for me because it means that I'm gaining on it. It means that I am figuring out that not only is depression, anxiety, all of those negative feelings something that I can control, but that if I thought that an antidepressant or anti-anxiety helped me in the past, that wasn't real help. That's not a long-term solution. The human psyche and the way that we interpret our universe is so deep, wide, vast that a pill isn't going to make us understand ourselves better. And that is the long road. I'm not against antidepressants or anti-anxiety or any medication that someone might need for their mental health, but just for me personally, I'm finding that this road is so much more enlightening to travel than to try and get a quick fix on it. So I hope that that makes any sense at all. I dread editing this, but if you guys enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. If you guys have anything to share down below or just kind of want to say, hell yeah, you go girl, whatever, or I don't know, just put it down in the comments. And guys, if you want to keep hanging out with me on this channel, go ahead and hit the button down below and subscribe. Promise not all the videos are like this. I just want you guys to know that I'm a real person at the end of the day. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you're having a great week so far, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.